I stood in my own kitchen, watching Charmaine hold up my late husband's gold watch in front of 30 people at what was supposed to be a celebration dinner for my daughter Kendra's pregnancy announcement. My hands shook as she smiled that sharp smile of hers and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Estelle, isn't this the watch you pawned last month? The one you told everyone was stolen?" The room went silent. Every eye turned to me. My daughter Kendra, glowing in her yellow maternity dress, looked confused. My son Terrence, Charmaine's husband, wouldn't meet my gaze. The church ladies who'd known me for 40 years whispered behind their hands. My pastor and his wife stood frozen by the punch bowl. "I found the pawn ticket in your Bible," Charmaine continued, her voice dripping with fake concern. "The one you carry to church every Sunday. I was just looking for a bookmark, and there it was." "How much did they give you for it? $50? Were you that desperate?" My throat closed up. That watch was the last thing my husband Walter gave me before the cancer took him 3 years ago. I never pawned it. I would never. But somehow there it was, hanging from Charmaine's perfectly manicured fingers. "That's not true," I whispered, but my voice came out too quiet. "Mama?" Kendra stepped forward, her hand on her small belly. "What's she talking about?" Charmaine moved closer, and I could smell her expensive perfume. "Your mother has been lying to everyone. About her finances. About the stolen watch. About everything." She turned to the crowd. "Did you all know that Estelle asked me and Terrence for $10,000 last week? Said she needed it for medical bills, but we found out she's been gambling at the casino downtown." "That's a lie!" My voice finally broke through, but it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. Terrence finally spoke up, and my heart cracked when I heard him say, "Mama, we're just worried about you. We want to help, but you need to be honest with us." Before we continue, quick question. What would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Let me take you back to where this nightmare really started. 2 months before that horrible dinner, everything in my life was simple and good. I'm Estelle Washington, 67 years old, and I've lived in the same house in Oakland for the past 42 years. Walter and I bought it when Terrence was just a baby and Kendra was on the way. We raised our children here, built a life here, became part of the fabric of this neighborhood. After Walter passed, I stayed because this house holds every memory I have of the man I loved for 45 years. I worked as a nurse for 38 years before I retired. Walter was a postal worker. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We saved. We planned. We made sure our children got educated and had good starts in their lives. Terrence became an accountant. Kendra became a teacher. We were proud. Walter left me the house, his pension, and some savings. Not a fortune, but enough that I could live comfortably, travel a little, spoil my future grandchildren. I had my church community at Greater Hope Baptist, where I'd been a member since 1983. I had my garden. I had my Tuesday book club with the ladies. I had peace. Then Terrence married Charmaine 5 years ago. She came from a different kind of family. Money family. Her father owned 3 car dealerships, and her mother was a real estate developer. Charmaine grew up in the hills, went to private schools, summered in Martha's Vineyard. She was beautiful, educated, polished. When Terrence brought her home that first time, I was happy for him. I really was. But something about Charmaine always felt off to me. The way she looked at our house like it was quaint. The way she smiled when she said things that sounded nice but felt mean. "Oh, Estelle, you've kept the original wallpaper. How vintage." Or, "It's so sweet that you still use these old dishes. Very retro." Walter saw it too, before he passed. "That girl's got a cold eye," he told me one night after a family dinner. "She looks at everything like she's calculating what it's worth." "Terrence loves her," I said. "That's what matters." "Love can blind a good man," Walter said. "You watch yourself around her, Stella." I should have listened more carefully. After Walter died, Charmaine started making suggestions. You should sell this house, Estelle. It's too big for one person. You could move into a nice senior community, make friends your own age. Never mind that all my friends were my age, and they lived in this neighborhood. You should let us manage your finances. Terrence is an accountant, after all. You don't want to make mistakes at your age. As if I hadn't been managing money my whole adult life. You should give Terrence power of attorney, just in case something happens. We want to protect you. I was 67, not 97, and I could still balance my checkbook just fine. I said no to everything. Politely, firmly. This was my house, my money, my life. Walter and I had worked too hard for me to just hand it all over. That's when things started to change. Terrence began calling less. When I'd reach out, he'd be busy. Charmaine and I have plans. Or, we're focusing on our careers right now. The warmth started draining out of our relationship like water from a cracked bucket. Kendra noticed. Mama, what's going on with Terrence? He barely talks to you anymore. He's busy with his marriage, I told her. That's natural. But it wasn't natural. It was deliberate. Charmaine was building a wall between my son and me, brick by brick. Then Kendra called me 2 months ago with the best news I'd heard in years. Mama, I'm pregnant! You're going to be a grandmother! I cried. I laughed. I praised God. Kendra had been trying for 3 years. She and her husband Calvin had almost given up hope. This baby was a blessing, a miracle. We want to do a big family dinner to announce it properly, Kendra said. At your house, Mama, like we used to do for big news. Can we use your place? Baby, of course. I'll cook everything. We'll make it special. I spent the next week planning. I called Terrence to invite him and Charmaine. The phone call was short, but he agreed to come. Maybe this would bring us closer again. A new baby in the family. A fresh start. I cleaned the house top to bottom. I planned the menu, all of Kendra's favorites. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, cornbread, sweet potato pie. I invited the church ladies, the pastor and his wife, some of our close family friends. This was going to be a celebration. 3 days before the dinner, Charmaine called me. Estelle, I'd like to come by tomorrow to help you set up. I was surprised. Charmaine never volunteered to help with anything. That's sweet of you, honey, but I've got it under control. I insist. Let me bring some decorations, and maybe we can talk. Just us. Something in her voice made my skin prickle, but I agreed. Maybe I was wrong about her. Maybe she wanted to fix our relationship. She arrived the next afternoon with bags from expensive stores. Decorations, she said. She set them around the living room while I made us tea. When we sat down at my kitchen table, she got straight to business. Estelle, I'm going to be honest with you. Terrence and I are concerned. Concerned about what? Your finances, this house, your ability to manage on your own. I set down my teacup. I'm managing just fine. Are you? She pulled out a folder from her designer handbag. We've noticed some concerning things. You're behind on your property taxes. I'm not behind. I paid them last month. You're withdrawing large amounts of cash from your bank account. That's my money. I can withdraw what I want. You've been seen at the Golden Gate Casino. My mouth fell open. I've never been to any casino. Charmaine's smile was thin. Estelle, lying about it makes it worse. We're not judging you. Gambling addiction is a disease. We want to help you get treatment. I don't have a gambling addiction because I don't gamble. She slid a photograph across the table. It showed a black woman around my age walking into a casino. From behind, she wore a jacket similar to one I owned. But her build was different. Her hair was styled differently. That's not me, I said. It's clearly you. Same jacket, same purse. Charmaine, I'm telling you, that is not me. She sighed like I was a difficult child. This is why we need to help you. You're in denial. And now with Kendra's baby coming, we need to make sure you're stable. What if you're babysitting and you have a gambling urge? What if you take money that's meant for the baby? Anger flared in my chest. How dare you suggest? I'm trying to protect this family. Her voice turned cold. Terrence agrees with me. If you don't accept help, we'll have to take other measures for everyone's safety. Other measures? What does that mean? It means we'll do what's necessary to protect our family interests. She stood up, smoothing her expensive skirt. Think about what I said, and think about how it would look to everyone at Kendra's party if they knew the truth about you. There's no truth to know. I haven't done anything wrong. But she was already walking toward the door. See you at the party, Estelle. I hope you make the right choice. After she left, I sat at that kitchen table shaking. Something was very wrong. Why was she lying? What did she mean by other measures? And why now, right before Kendra's big announcement? I called my friend Odessa, who'd been my neighbor for 20 years. She came right over. That girl is up to something, Odessa said after I told her everything. You need to be careful, Stella. But what can I do? She's making up lies about me. Document everything. Keep your papers safe. Watch your back. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that photograph, about Charmaine's threats. I got up at 2 a.m. and went to check on Walter's watch. I kept it in a special wooden box in my bedroom closet, wrapped in the handkerchief he used to carry. The box was there. But when I opened it, my heart stopped. The watch was gone. I tore through the closet. I checked every drawer. I looked in places that made no sense. The watch had vanished. And then I found something that made my blood run cold. In my Bible, the one I carried to church every Sunday, there was a pawn shop ticket. Dated 1 week ago, for one gold men's watch. I sat on my bedroom floor and cried. Someone had been in my house. Someone had stolen Walter's watch and planted evidence to make me look guilty. The party was the next evening. I thought about canceling, about telling Kendra what was happening. But this was her moment, her joy. I wouldn't ruin it because of whatever game Charmaine was playing. I cooked all day. The church ladies arrived early to help set up. The house filled with people, with laughter, with love. Kendra arrived glowing, Calvin holding her hand. For a moment, everything felt right. Then Charmaine walked in, and she had Walter's watch in her purse. That's how I ended up standing in my kitchen, being accused of pawning my dead husband's watch in front of everyone I loved. That's how I ended up watching my daughter's face crumble with confusion and my son refuse to meet my eyes. The pastor cleared his throat. Perhaps we should let Estelle explain. There's nothing to explain, I said quietly. I never pawned that watch. Someone took it from my house and planted that ticket in my Bible. Someone who has a key to my home. I looked directly at Charmaine. She laughed. Are you seriously accusing me? I'm trying to help you, Estelle. We all are. You need help for your gambling problem. I don't have a gambling problem. Then explain the casino photographs. Explain the cash withdrawals. Explain the pawn ticket. She turned to Kendra. Your mother has been hiding her addiction from all of you. We discovered it by accident. We're not the bad guys here. Kendra's eyes filled with tears. Mama, why didn't you tell us you were struggling? I'm not struggling. Baby, I swear to you. Maybe we should do this another time, Calvin said, putting his arm around Kendra. This is supposed to be a happy occasion. But Charmaine wasn't finished. There's one more thing everyone should know. Estelle asked us for $10,000 last week. She said it was for medical bills, but she's not sick. She wanted it to pay gambling debts. The room erupted in whispers. I felt dizzy. Terrence finally stepped forward. Mama, if you need money, we'll help you. But you have to be honest. You have to admit you have a problem. I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, who used to tell me everything, who used to defend me against the world. And all I saw was a stranger. I'm not admitting to something I didn't do, I said. Charmaine's smile was victorious. She'd won. In one evening, she'd destroyed my reputation, turned my son against me, and humiliated me in front of my entire community. Kendra was crying now. The church ladies were gathering their things, making quiet excuses. The pastor looked uncomfortable. One by one, people left my house, leaving dishes of uneaten food and an atmosphere thick with judgment. When everyone was gone except Kendra, Calvin, Terrence, and Charmaine, my daughter finally spoke. "Mama, you need to get help, for your sake and for your grandchild's sake." "Kendra, please listen to me." But she was already walking toward the door, Calvin guiding her. "I can't do this right now. I just can't." After they left, Terrence and Charmaine stood in my living room. "We're prepared to help you, Mama," Terrence said. "But you have to let us. Sign the papers giving me power of attorney. Let us get you into treatment. We can manage your finances, make sure the bills get paid, keep you safe." "And if I don't?" Charmaine answered. "Then we'll petition the court to declare you mentally incompetent. We have evidence of your gambling, your financial mismanagement, your denial. A judge will see that you can't care for yourself." I stared at them both. "You want my house?" "We want to protect you," Terrence said, but he couldn't look at me when he said it. "No, you want my house. This is what this whole thing has been about." Charmaine shrugged. "Your house is worth $800,000 in the current market. It's an asset that's being wasted. You could be in a nice, safe senior facility while this property gets properly utilized." "Utilized? You mean sold so you can have the money?" "We're your family," Charmaine said. "Eventually it would go to Terrence anyway. We're just being practical." "Get out of my house." "Mama," Terrence started. "I said get out." They left. The door closed. And I stood alone in my kitchen, surrounded by the ruins of what was supposed to be a celebration, wondering how my life had fallen apart so quickly. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Walter's old recliner, the one I'd kept because it still smelled like him sometimes, and I cried. I cried for my son, who'd let his wife turn him against his own mother. I cried for Kendra, whose joy had been destroyed. I cried for Walter, who'd warned me about Charmaine but hadn't lived long enough to protect me. But as the sun came up over Oakland, something shifted inside me. The tears stopped. A cold, clear anger took their place. Charmaine thought she was clever. She thought she'd trapped me. She thought a 67-year-old widow would just roll over and let herself be robbed. She didn't know who she was dealing with. I'd survived poverty as a child. I'd worked my way through nursing school while raising 2 babies. I'd nursed dying patients and held their hands through their last moments. I'd buried the love of my life and kept going. I'd dealt with racism, sexism, and every other kind of discrimination that life throws at a Black woman in America. I wasn't about to let Charmaine Wallace take what Walter and I had built. I made coffee, sat down at my kitchen table, and started making a list. I needed evidence. I needed allies. I needed a plan. The doorbell rang at 8 in the morning. I opened it to find Odessa standing there with a casserole dish and a determined look on her face. "All right, Stella," she said, walking past me into the kitchen. "Tell me everything. And I mean everything. Because that girl who married your son just made a big mistake." "What mistake?" Odessa set down the casserole and turned to me with a smile that reminded me why we'd been friends for 20 years. "She underestimated you. Now let's figure out how to make her regret it." For the first time since that awful dinner, I felt a spark of hope. But I had no idea just how dirty Charmaine was willing to fight, and I definitely didn't know that the worst was still to come. Odessa and I spent that whole morning going through everything that had happened. She made notes on a legal pad, her reading glasses perched on her nose, looking every bit like the retired school principal she was. "First thing," she said, "we need to prove you weren't at that casino. Do you have any receipts, any proof of where you actually were that day?" I pulled out my planner. I kept detailed records of everything. On the day Charmaine claimed I was gambling, I'd been at my doctor's appointment for my annual checkup, then at Bible study at church. "Get copies of everything," Odessa said. "Medical records, sign-in sheets from church. We need a paper trail." "What about the watch? How do I prove I didn't pawn it?" "We'll visit that pawn shop, see what they remember. Maybe they have security footage." Over the next week, I worked quietly. I went to my doctor's office and requested copies of my records showing I was there during the time I was supposedly gambling. My doctor, Dr. Patterson, who'd been treating me for 15 years, looked concerned. "Estelle, is everything all right?" I told him a shortened version. His face darkened. "That's elder abuse. Financial exploitation. If you need a statement from me that you're mentally competent and not showing signs of gambling addiction or cognitive decline, I'll provide it." Those words, elder abuse, hit me hard. That's what this was. My own son was participating in elder abuse. Next, I went to Greater Hope Baptist and asked Pastor Daniels if I could see the sign-in sheets from Bible study. He pulled me into his office. "Sister Estelle, I need to apologize. I should have spoken up at that dinner. I was too shocked. But I've known you for 42 years, and the things that young woman said don't match the woman I know." My eyes filled with tears. "You believe me?" "Of course I believe you. And so do most of the church mothers. In fact, we've been talking. Some folks want to help however we can." He pulled out the sign-in sheet. My signature was right there, at the exact time I was supposedly at the casino. He made me a copy and wrote a letter on church stationery stating I was at Bible study. "One more thing," Pastor Daniel said. "Sister Joyce said she thinks she saw Charmaine's car parked outside your house on a Tuesday afternoon about 2 weeks ago. You weren't home. She remembered because she thought it was strange that Charmaine was there alone." My stomach dropped. That's when the watch was taken. That had to be when. Armed with my evidence, Odessa and I visited the pawn shop listed on the ticket. It was in a rough part of downtown, not anywhere I'd ever go. The man behind the counter looked at the ticket and pulled up his computer records. "Yeah, I remember this. Lady brought it in about 2 weeks ago." "Can you describe her?" Odessa asked. He squinted. "Black woman, maybe late 60s. But honestly, I see a lot of people. She wore sunglasses and a hat. Had a nice jacket, though. Looked expensive." "Do you have security footage?" "We keep it for 30 days. Let me check." He disappeared into the back and returned with a disappointed shake of his head. "Sorry, camera was broken that day. Been meaning to fix it." Of course it was. Charmaine had probably checked first. But then the pawnbroker said something interesting. "You know what was weird, though? She had the watch in a fancy jewelry box with some kind of certificate of authenticity. Said her husband had just died and she needed quick cash. But her nails were done fresh, real nice. And that purse she carried? I know designer when I see it. Lady wasn't hurting for money." Odessa and I exchanged looks. "What did she do with the certificate?" "Took it back. Just pawned the watch. Said the papers were sentimental." We thanked him and left. In the car, Odessa turned to me. She kept the certificate so she could prove it was Walter's watch. She thought of everything. "Not everything," I said. She didn't know about Sister Joyce seeing her car. She didn't know the pawnbroker would remember her fancy things. We're building a case. That afternoon, I called a lawyer Odessa recommended. Denise Richards was a sharp black woman in her 40s who specialized in elder law. I told her everything in her downtown office while she took notes. "Mrs. Washington, this is a clear case of attempted financial exploitation and defamation. Your daughter-in-law has engaged in fraud, theft, and is threatening to file for guardianship under false pretenses. We can fight this." "How much will it cost?" She named a figure that made me wince, but I had savings. Walter and I had been careful. "I can pay it?" "Good. I'm going to send a cease and desist letter to Charmaine and your son. They need to know you have legal representation, and if they proceed with guardianship proceedings, We'll be ready." I left her office feeling stronger. I had evidence. I had allies. I had a plan. But I underestimated how far Charmaine would go. 2 days later, Kendra called me. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Mama, they're saying you threatened Charmaine, that you showed up at her work and caused a scene. Security had to escort you out." "What? Baby, I've never been to Charmaine's office. I don't even know where she works." "They have witnesses, Mama, and security footage." My heart pounded. "That's impossible. I'm so scared. What's happening to you? Calvin thinks maybe you're having some kind of breakdown, maybe early dementia." "Kendra, listen to me. I am not sick. I am not confused. Your brother's wife is lying about me, and she's fabricating evidence. I would never threaten anyone." "But why would she do that?" "Because she wants my house. She wants me declared incompetent so she can control my property." There was a long silence. "Mama, that sounds paranoid." "I have a lawyer, baby. I have evidence that proves I'm being set up. Denise Richards, that's her name. Call her if you don't believe me. I'm not crazy and I'm not giving up." After we hung up, I called Denise immediately. She listened to the new accusation and sighed. "They're escalating. This is actually good for us in a way. The more outrageous the claims, the easier they are to disprove. Don't worry, we'll request that footage. I guarantee it either doesn't exist or shows someone who isn't you." But the damage was done. By the next Sunday, whispers followed me through church. People who'd known me for decades looked at me with pity or suspicion. The church mother stood by me, but I could feel the community splitting. After service, Sister Joyce pulled me aside. "Estelle, I have something to tell you. I've been feeling guilty about staying quiet." "What is it?" "About 6 months ago, Charmaine came to my house, said she was worried about you, that you were getting forgetful. She asked me to keep an eye on you and report back anything concerning." "She was building a case even then," I said bitterly. "But I never saw anything wrong with you." I told her that. She seemed disappointed. Sister Joyce squeezed my hand. "I should have told you right away. I'm sorry." "It's not your fault. But Joyce, would you be willing to give a statement to my lawyer?" "Absolutely." More allies were revealing themselves. Odessa's son, who worked in tech, helped me check my computer and phone. "Aunt Stella, someone's been accessing your accounts. See these login attempts from an IP address that's not yours? They've been trying to get into your email and bank accounts. Can you trace where they're coming from?" He worked his magic on the laptop. "This IP address belongs to a coffee shop in downtown Oakland, but I can tell you the attempts always happen on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons between 2 and 4 p.m. Charmaine works from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays," I said slowly. "She told me that once. Says she goes to a coffee shop to focus." We had her, but I needed more proof. That's when Marcus came into my life. Marcus Freeman was Odessa's nephew, a private investigator who'd retired from the Oakland Police Department. He was in his 50s, built like he still worked out every day, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "Mrs. Washington," he said when Odessa brought him by, "my aunt tells me you're in a situation. I'd like to help. I can't afford—" "Didn't ask about money. I don't like bullies, and I especially don't like people who prey on elders. Let me look into this Charmaine Wallace, see what I can dig up." Within 3 days, Marcus came back with information that made my jaw drop. "Your daughter-in-law has done this before," he said, spreading documents across my kitchen table. 5 years ago, before she met your son, she worked as a financial advisor. She was fired for inappropriate conduct with elderly clients. Never charged, but there were allegations she'd convinced several seniors to sign over power of attorney and then mismanaged their assets. "Oh my God. There's more. She's in debt, serious debt. She and your son bought a house in the hills they can't afford. She's got credit cards maxed out. Her father cut her off financially 6 months ago after she asked for money one too many times. She's desperate." "So she targeted me." "Looks that way. Your house is worth a lot of money. If she could get guardianship over you, she could sell it, pay off her debts, and your son probably doesn't even know the full extent of their financial problems." I sat back in my chair. I need to tell Terrence. "He won't believe you," Odessa warned. "That woman has her claws in deep." She was right. When I called Terrence and asked to meet him alone, he refused. "Anything you need to say to me, you can say in front of my wife." "Terrence, please. Son, I'm begging you, just have coffee with me. Just us, like we used to." There was a long pause. "I'll think about it." He never called back. Instead, 2 days later, I got served with papers. Charmaine and Terrence were petitioning for an emergency guardianship. The court date was set for 2 weeks away. I called Denise in a panic. "Can they do this?" "They can file, but we're going to fight it. We have evidence you're competent. We have proof of their fraud. And now we have Marcus's information about Charmaine's past. Mrs. Washington, we're going to win this." But the stress was taking its toll. I wasn't sleeping. I'd lost weight. My blood pressure was up. Even with my church family supporting me, even with Odessa by my side every day, I felt myself breaking. The worst part was Kendra. She called less and less. When she did, her voice was strained. "Mama, I don't know what to believe anymore. Terrence says one thing, you say another. I'm pregnant and stressed, and I just want my family to be okay." "Baby, I understand. You focus on that precious baby. I'm going to fix this." "How? You can't even fix things with your own son." Those words cut deep because they were true. I was losing Terrence. Maybe I'd already lost him. The night before the guardianship hearing, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my dark living room at 3 a.m, praying for wisdom, praying for justice, praying for my son to wake up and see what his wife was doing. My phone rang. At 3 a.m. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Washington?" A woman's voice, young, scared. "You don't know me, but my name is Aaliyah Chen. I used to work with Charmaine Wallace at her old job." I sat up straight. "Yes? I heard through a friend that she's trying to get guardianship over you. I had to call. 5 years ago, I watched her do the same thing to an elderly client named Mr. Peterson. She manipulated him, isolated him from his family, got him to change his will. He died 6 months later, and his kids got nothing. Charmaine got fired before the full investigation could finish, but I know what I saw. Would you testify? Would you come to court and tell the judge this?" "I'm scared. Charmaine threatened me back then, said she'd ruin my career if I talked. But Mr. Peterson was a kind man, and what she did to him haunts me. If I can stop her from doing it again, I will. Yes, I'll testify." I got her information and immediately called Denise, not caring that it was 3 a.m. She answered on the second ring. "We have a witness," I said. "Someone who saw Charmaine do this before. Get me her contact information." This changes everything. The next morning, I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks: hope. I dressed carefully for court. My best church dress, the pearls Walter gave me on our 20th anniversary. Odessa drove me downtown. Marcus met us there. Sister Joyce came. Pastor Daniels came. Dr. Patterson came. My whole community showed up. Kendra was there too, sitting on the other side of the courtroom with Terrence and Charmaine. My heart broke seeing them together, seeing Kendra's confused face, seeing Terrence refuse to look at me. The hearing began. Charmaine's lawyer presented their case: the gambling allegations, the supposed threats at her workplace, the pawn ticket. They made me sound unstable, confused, dangerous even. Then Denise stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to present evidence that Mrs. Washington is the victim of a deliberate fraud scheme by her daughter-in-law." For the next hour, Denise systematically destroyed every one of Charmaine's lies. She showed my medical records proving I was at the doctor during the alleged casino visit. She showed the church sign-in sheets. She presented testimony from the pawnbroker describing someone who didn't match my appearance. She had Marcus testify about Charmaine's past and her current financial desperation. I watched Charmaine's face turn from confident to worried to angry. I watched Terrence start to look confused. I watched Kendra lean forward, paying close attention. Then Denise called Aaliyah Chen to the stand. The young woman was nervous, but her voice was clear. She told the story of Mr. Peterson, how Charmaine had befriended him, gained his trust, isolated him from his children, and ultimately manipulated him into changing his will in her favor. "Did you report this?" the judge asked. "I tried, but there wasn't enough concrete evidence and Mr. Peterson had passed away. Charmaine was fired, but no charges were filed. I've regretted my silence ever since." Charmaine's lawyer objected repeatedly, but the damage was done. The judge looked directly at Charmaine. "Mrs. Wallace, do you have anything to say?" Charmaine stood up, and for the first time I saw her mask slip. "This is ridiculous. These are lies. I've been trying to help my mother-in-law. She's clearly turned these people against me." "Mrs. Wallace," the judge said coldly, "I find the evidence presented by Mrs. Washington's counsel to be compelling and credible. Your petition for guardianship is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering an investigation into your allegations. If they're found to be fraudulent, you could face charges for perjury and elder abuse." The gavel came down. I'd won. But as I turned to see Terrence's face, watching his world crumble as he realized what his wife had done, I didn't feel victorious. I felt heartbroken. Kendra was crying. Terrence looked like he'd been punched, and Charmaine's face twisted into something ugly as she stared at me across the courtroom. "This isn't over," she mouthed silently, and I believed her. Because that night, when I returned home with Odessa, we found my house had been ransacked. Every drawer dumped, every closet torn apart, furniture overturned. And spray-painted across my living room wall in red paint were the words, "You'll pay for this." I stood in my destroyed living room, looking at those red words dripping down my wall, and something inside me snapped. Not in a breaking way, in a clarifying way. This woman had underestimated me for the last time. "We're calling the police," Odessa said, already pulling out her phone. "Wait!" I took photos of everything with my cell phone. Every room, every overturned piece of furniture. Those threatening words on my wall. "Now call them." The police came. They took statements, dusted for fingerprints, documented everything. The officer, a young black woman named Officer Banks, looked at me with sympathy. "Mrs. Washington, given the court hearing today and these threats, we're taking this very seriously. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight?" "She's staying with me," Odessa said firmly. But I shook my head. "No, this is my house. I'm not leaving." Marcus, who'd rushed over when Odessa called him, offered to stay the night. "I'll sleep on your couch, Mrs. Washington, just in case anyone comes back." That night, while Marcus kept watch downstairs, I sat on my bed surrounded by the mess and called Kendra. "Mama?" Her voice was thick from crying. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't understand what she was doing to you." "I know, baby. Terrence is a mess. He's been locked in the guest room all evening. He won't talk to anyone. He had no idea about Charmaine's past, about the debt, about any of it. She lied to him about everything." "Where is Charmaine now?" "She left right after court, packed a bag and went to her parents' house. Terrence tried to talk to her, but she just kept saying you were the problem, that you'd poisoned everyone against her." "Mama, I think my brother's marriage is over." Part of me felt guilty about that, but mostly I felt relieved that Terrence was finally seeing the truth. "Kendra, someone broke into my house tonight, destroyed it, spray-painted threats on my wall." "What? Oh my God, Mama, are you okay?" "I'm fine. Marcus is here. But baby, I need you to be careful. Charmaine is desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things. I'm coming over tomorrow, first thing. I don't care what Calvin says. You're my mother, and I should have believed you from the start. After we hung up, I finally cried. Not from fear or anger, but from relief. I had my daughter back. The next morning, Officer Banks called me. Mrs. Washington, we got fingerprints from your house. They match Charmaine Wallace. We're issuing a warrant for her arrest on charges of vandalism, making criminal threats, and breaking and entering. Thank you, officer. There's more. We pulled security footage from a neighbor's Ring camera. It shows Mrs. Wallace entering your property at 9:30 p.m. She was there for about 20 minutes. We have her on video. Charmaine had been so careful with everything else, but rage had made her sloppy. Kendra arrived at 10, her belly now showing clearly. She walked through the house, taking in the damage, and started crying again. Your beautiful home! How could she do this? Help me clean it up, I said. Let's put it back together. We spent the day working side by side, my daughter and me, putting things back in drawers, wiping down walls, sorting through the chaos. It felt healing somehow, rebuilding together. Around noon, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Terrence standing there, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. Mama, he said, and his voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I stood there looking at my son, this man who'd let his wife turn him against me, who'd participated in trying to steal my home and my freedom. I wanted to slam the door in his face. I wanted to make him hurt the way he'd hurt me, but he was still my baby boy, the child I'd rocked to sleep, the little boy who'd held my hand on his first day of school, the young man who'd cried in my arms when his father died. Come in, I said. We sat in the kitchen, the three of us. Terrence couldn't stop apologizing. I was so blind. She told me you were getting forgetful, that you'd asked her for money and then denied it. She said she was worried about you. Every doubt I had, she had an answer for. She made me feel like I was protecting you by going along with the guardianship. Did you know about her debt? I asked. Not until yesterday. After court, I went through our finances. Mama, we're drowning. She's been hiding credit card statements, taking out loans I didn't know about. The house payment is 3 months behind. We're about to lose everything. He put his head in his hands. I'm such a fool. You married someone who lied to you, I said. That doesn't make you a fool. It makes you a victim, too. But I let her convince me that my own mother was losing her mind. I stood by while she humiliated you at Kendra's party. I filed those guardianship papers. Mama, how can you ever forgive me? Kendra reached across the table and took her brother's hand. Because she's Mama. And that's what she does. I looked at both my children. I forgive you, Terrence, but we have to rebuild trust. That takes time. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm filing for divorce. I'm done with Charmaine. What about your finances? I'll figure it out. I'll get a second job if I have to. I just want my family back. That afternoon, Officer Banks called again. We've arrested Charmaine Wallace. She's being held on $50,000 bail. She's also being investigated for elder fraud and the incident with her former employer. The DA is looking at multiple charges. What happens now? There'll be a trial. We'll need you to testify. But Mrs. Washington, with the evidence we have, she's looking at serious prison time. Part of me felt satisfaction, but mostly I just felt tired. The weeks that followed were strange. Terrence moved back home with me temporarily while he sorted out his finances and divorce. It was awkward at first, having my adult son in his childhood bedroom again. But slowly, carefully, we started talking again. Really talking. I should have listened to Dad, he said one night over dinner. He warned me about Charmaine. He saw something I couldn't see. Your father always had good instincts about people. I miss him, especially now. I could use his advice. He'd tell you that you made a mistake, But mistakes don't define you. How you recover from them does. Kendra came by almost every day. We spent hours together planning for the baby, painting the nursery in her house, shopping for tiny clothes. She insisted I be in the delivery room when the time came. "You're going to be the first person besides me and Calvin to hold her," she said, her hand on her belly. "Her? It's a girl. I found out last week. We're naming her Estelle, after you." I cried for an hour after she told me that. The trial came 2 months later. The DA had built a strong case against Charmaine. Elder fraud, theft, vandalism, making criminal threats, perjury. I testified about everything. So did Aaliyah Chen, the pawnbroker, Sister Joyce, everyone. Charmaine's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, as someone who'd turned a family against a woman who was just trying to help. But the evidence was overwhelming. I watched Charmaine sit at the defense table in her expensive suit, and I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt sad. Sad that someone so young had chosen a path of manipulation and greed. Sad that she'd destroyed her own marriage and future for money she never got. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 4 years in prison and ordered her to pay restitution. As they led her away in handcuffs, she looked at me one last time. Not with hate, with something like confusion, like she couldn't understand how I'd won. Outside the courthouse, Terrence stood next to me. "It's really over." "Yes, son, it's over. I still can't believe I married someone capable of that." "You married someone who hid who she really was. That's not your fault." Denise walked up, smiling. "Well, Mrs. Washington, you're officially free and clear. Your house is yours, your reputation is restored, and justice has been served. Thank you for everything. Thank you for trusting me. And for being one tough lady." That night, the church threw a celebration dinner at my house. The same house where Charmaine had tried to humiliate me months before. But this time, it was filled with joy and love. The church mothers brought food. Marcus and Odessa brought champagne. Pastor Daniels gave a blessing. "Lord, we thank you for Sister Estelle's strength, for her perseverance, for the truth that always comes to light. We thank you for bringing her family back together and for the new life coming into this family." As if on cue, Kendra gasped, "Mama, I think my water just broke." The room erupted. Calvin jumped up, panicking. I grabbed my purse and Kendra's overnight bag, which she'd wisely brought just in case. Odessa drove us to the hospital while Calvin called ahead. 12 hours later, I held my granddaughter for the first time. Estelle Marie Washington Jackson. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Perfect in every way. "Hi, baby girl," I whispered. "I'm your grandma, and I'm going to love you forever." Kendra watched me with tears in her eyes. "Mama, I'm so sorry for ever doubting you." "We're not looking back anymore, baby. Only forward." Terrence came later that day, looking at his niece with wonder. "She's beautiful." "She is," I agreed. "Mama, I found a good financial counselor. I'm going to rebuild. It'll take time, but I'm going to fix the mess I made." "I know you will. You're Walter Washington's son. You've got strength in you." Over the next few months, life slowly returned to normal. Better than normal, actually. Terrence got his finances under control, moved into a modest apartment, and started therapy to work through everything that had happened. He came for Sunday dinners every week. Kendra and Calvin moved closer to me so I could help with the baby. Little Estelle became the light of my life. I babysat 3 days a week, watching her grow and change, singing her the same songs I'd sung to her mother and uncle. The church community rallied around me stronger than ever. Sister Joyce and I became even closer friends. Marcus started stopping by regularly, ostensibly to check on me, but I suspected he was interested in more than my safety. Odessa certainly thought so. That man is sweet on you, Stella, she said one afternoon while we watched baby Estelle sleep. We're just friends. Mm-hmm. Friends who have dinner together 3 times a week. Maybe she was right. Maybe there was something there. Walter had been gone for 3 years. Maybe it was okay to think about companionship again. Marcus was kind, funny, respectful. He made me laugh. We'd see where it went. One Sunday after church, 6 months after the trial, Terrence asked if he could talk to me privately. We sat in my backyard under the oak tree Walter had planted when we first bought the house. Mama, I need to tell you something. The divorce is final, and I've been offered a job in Sacramento. Better pay, fresh start. My heart sank. You're leaving? Only if you're okay with it. I don't want you to think I'm running away, but I need to rebuild my life, and I think some distance from everything that happened here would help. I understood. Sometimes you need space to heal. It's 2 hours away. You can come visit. And I can come see you. You're not mad? I'm proud of you. You made mistakes, but you owned them. You're rebuilding. That takes courage. He hugged me tight. I love you, Mama. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making up for what I put you through. You already have, son. You came back to me. That's all I ever wanted. A year after everything started, I stood in my kitchen making Sunday dinner. Kendra was bringing the baby. Terrence was driving down from Sacramento. Calvin was bringing his mother. Marcus was coming. Odessa and her family. The church mothers. My house was going to be full of noise and love and life. I looked at the wall where Charmaine's red paint had been. It was covered now with family photos. Pictures of baby Estelle, photos of Terrence at his new job, pictures of Kendra and Calvin, an old wedding photo of Walter and me. The doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on my apron and went to answer it, smiling. My house, my family, my life, still mine, still blessed. Charmaine had tried to take everything from me, but she'd forgotten something important. You can't break a woman who's been built by struggle, strengthened by loss, and held up by love. I was Estelle Washington. I'd survived poverty, racism, widowhood, and betrayal. I'd raised 2 children, worked for nearly 40 years, loved deeply, and lost greatly. And I was still standing. As I opened the door to let my family in, I felt Walter's presence like a warm breeze. I could almost hear his voice. That's my Stella, strong until the end. Not the end, I thought. Just a new beginning. Baby Estelle started crying upstairs, and Kendra called for me. Marcus arrived with flowers. Terrence's car pulled into the driveway. The kitchen timer went off. Life kept moving, kept demanding, kept blessing, and I was ready for all of it. That's all for today's story. If this touched your heart, please subscribe for more stories and drop a comment. We read every single one.